I want to share a story I found on the Federalist today, thefederalist.com. It's about Saragal Soutbay. This is a woman who lived through the concentration camps in the Xinjiang province. This is where the concentration camps are for the Uyghurs. And I just have to take a victory lap. I got all of those names right, which is very, very unusual for me.
Even English names you usually get wrong. So that was really impressive. I know.
Mm-hmm. Bob Parker is very difficult for me at times. All right, there is this new book that has just come out, Escape from China's Modern-Day Concentration Camps. And excerpts have been published now, and it is not pretty. Now, I bring this up because I think of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. God will not hold us blameless. And I know Apple and Google and Facebook. There was just a story from, I think, the Wall Street Journal where Apple is getting deeper in bed with the Chinese government, and they are helping them round up. I mean, it's exactly what IBM did in the Holocaust. They're helping them. And we're not going to be held blameless because we know. Right now, the U.S. State Department says that the Communist Party in China has forced possibly more than 2 million people, mostly Uyghur Muslims, into camps in China's Xinjiang province. 2 million people. Now, we just heard from John Kerry. Well, we're still looking into it. We're not sure that those concentration camps are there. Well, you have somebody who escaped. In fact, you have several people now who have escaped. This is exactly the same thing that happened with the Jews in Germany. And there's this great story of this Polish patriot who went in and got himself intentionally arrested so he could get into Auschwitz and he could report on it. He kept sending information out and everybody said, no, that's crazy. He finally escaped in an amazing escape story. And he escaped and he wrote it all down and sent it to, I believe, the U.S. Embassy in Switzerland. And we did nothing. We're doing exactly the same thing we said we'd never forget. So here's what's going on. According to this person who escaped, there are now 380 concentration camps. This according to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. 380 concentration camps in China. Soutbay, in her book, talks about a room called the Black Room. And it was near the guardhouse at the camp where she was imprisoned. She said the screams coming from the Black Room sounded like the raw cries of a dying animal. She said the second you hear them, you know what kind of agony that person is experiencing. I've been to Auschwitz. They've had their own Black Room. That's where they performed surgery on pregnant women while they were awake. Across the courtyard where they shot all of the people at the firing range, across that courtyard is another place where they just tortured people. This is exactly what is happening in China. She recalls seeing chains on the walls in the Black Room and chairs with nails sticking out of the seats where inmates would be tied down. Torture devices on the walls look like they were from the Middle Ages, including implements used to pull fingernails and toenails out, with a spear-like rod for jabbing into a person's flesh. Electric chairs, iron chairs with holes in the back so the arms could be twisted back above the shoulder joint, and other chairs designed to pin victims down lined one side of the room. Many of the people they tortured never came back out of that room, she said. Others would stumble out covered in blood. Secretive orders maintain that any prisoners who died or were killed must vanish without a trace. There should be no visible signs of torture on the bodies or any evidence, proof, or documentation that was needed to be immediately destroyed. Taking photos or video recordings of the corpses was forbidden. The families of the deceased either received vague excuses or sometimes it was advisable just simply never to mention that they had died at all. She said in one of her classes, re-education classes in the camps, I was barely to even listen to myself talk about our self-sacrificing patriarch, President Z, who passed on the warmth of love with his hands while several of the students collapsed unconscious and fell off their plastic chairs. If you fell off your chair, you were unconscious, in anguish or stress. The guards grabbed the unconscious person by both arms and dragged them away like a doll, their feet trailing across the floor. They didn't just take the unconscious, they took the sick and the mad. Sometimes it was simply because a prisoner hadn't understood one of the guards' orders issued in Chinese. One 84-year-old woman, South Bay remembers, was accused of making an international phone call. Despite her denial, the camp guards punished her by ripping out her fingernails. Another woman in her 20s admitted to texting a greeting to a friend for a Muslim holiday as a teenager. As punishment, the guards gang raped her, while South Bay was forced to watch. Quote, while they were raping her, they checked to see how we were reacting. People who turned their heads or closed their eyes, or those who looked angry or shocked, were taken away, and we never saw them again. Inmates who were healthy and young often had their medical files marked by a red X. It was simply a fact that the party took organs from prisoners. She began to suspect those inmates were being forcefully used for organ harvesting. Organs from Muslim donors are often preferred by other Muslims because they are halal. I realized that these young, healthy inmates were disappearing overnight, whisked away by the guards. When I checked later, I realized to my horror that all their medical files were marked with a red X. South Bay also requires seeing classified papers from Beijing outlining a plan to overtake Europe by 2055. The first step, alongside the years 2014 to 2015, was to assimilate those who are willing in Xinjiang and eliminate those who are not. Step 2 was called annexing of neighboring countries between 25 and 2035. But China has already started to test its borders. In 2020, the Chinese government built 11 buildings inside Nepal, denied Nepal's claim to the district. In the same year, the Communist Party passed a security law over Hong Kong and used it to charge and imprison pro-democracy legislators and activists. The third step is to be achieved in the future 2035, and it was the occupation of Europe. I can't tell you how disgusted I am by groups like the ADL. I have tried to work with them. I have tried to reach out to them. Sometimes they get it right. Most times they're carrying water for the left, I think. I can't say most times. Many times they're carrying water for the left. It means nothing. It means nothing to say never forget if you won't talk about the things that lead to a Holocaust. By never forgetting doesn't mean just remember their names and remember what happened, but look at the seeds that are being planted today so we don't go down that road. And almost every step of the way, when I warned about anti-Semitism returning, the Nazi-like ideals returning, I was called a conspiracy theorist. I was called even an anti-Semite at times by the ADL themselves. And I begged them, how do you remember how do you do good? How do you make sure that Jews aren't beaten in the streets of Los Angeles and in Miami and in New York? How do you make sure that doesn't happen if you won't talk about the seeds that are being planted? It's too late when the tree has its vines all around your neck. It's too late. Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to stand is to stand. The world is becoming more and more deaf to evil. It is all being perverted. What is happening in China is evil. And I don't care if it's Disney or Apple or Facebook or anybody else that is doing business in China, in the province, Xinjiang, where they have 380 concentration camps. You're part of the problem. Apple, Facebook, Google, you are running algorithms right now at behest of the Chinese government. For what? Money? You are helping them find and round up people who are speaking out against this evil. That is evil itself. I can see, Google, why you changed your slogan, "Don't be evil." I understand why you changed that, because you have become an evil empire. We must stand together, and quite honestly, our churches are the only vehicles that can really do this effectively, to stand for the Jewish people, to stand for the Chinese Uyghurs, to stand against another coming Holocaust, wherever it happens in the world, to stand against this evil of critical race theory. It is evil. It tells you there is no salvation, and the sins of the Father are on the sins of the Son. That is anti-biblical. That is anti-Christ teaching. Pastors, priests, rabbis, where the hell are you? Speak out. Speak out. Let your voice be heard clearly. Where are the churches that are willing to go and meet with the synagogues and walk people to their worship service on Saturday? Where are they? We must band together. Judeo-Christian people who actually have a biblical view. They must join together now and stand. We are the only ones. We're the only ones that can stand without fear.